In this video, we will show you how to replace your power steering pressure line on this Honda Accord. This will be located inside of your engine compartment. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we should mention is it's always a good idea to make sure you flush the power steering system with the manufacturer's specified fluid, so you're sure there's no contaminants in the system. Aside from that, it's also a good idea to remove as much of the fluid from in the system once you're done as possible. Now let's follow that power steering pressure line along the backside of the engine. Now along the backside here is where you're going to find your power steering pressure switch. Let's start by disconnecting that switch. On the electrical connector, you'll find that there's a small squeeze tab to unlock it. Squeeze in the tab, unlock it, and separate the wiring harness from the switch. We'll give the wiring harness a quick inspection for corrosion. Assuming that looks okay, you can set that wiring harness aside. Now we can start unbolting the power steering switch from the steering line. To do that, we'll hold on to the squared out part of the line with a 17mm wrench. Continue on with a thin 19mm wrench to loosen the sensor. Let's break this free. There we are. We'll give this a quick inspection. We will be reusing it, and we'll set it aside. With that disconnected, let's make our way back up along the top here. You'll find that your pressure line is held in place to the power steering pump with two 10mm headed bolts. Before you remove this, it's a good idea to clean up the area around the power steering pump where that line goes onto, so no foreign debris makes its way inside and contaminates the system. With that cleaned up, we'll continue on with removing those two bolts. Keep in mind there could still be power steering fluid inside of this line. Be extremely careful that it doesn't come down and potentially get on the serpentine belt, in which case you'd have to replace the belt as well. We'll inspect that mounting hardware as we remove it, replace it as necessary. Take hold of the line, give it a wiggle, and separate it from the power steering pump. Looking up along the top of your valve cover, you'll find that you have a bracket that holds the power steering pressure line to the valve cover. Use a 10mm to remove that mounting bolt. Just give that a quick inspection as well. Now, while we're here, let's also remove the bracket from that pressure line. It's very simple. Just take the two ears and separate them. A quick inspection of that bracket. We will be reusing it. Let's set this aside. Continuing inside the engine compartment, we're going to look all the way down along the bottom, close to the power steering rack. You'll be able to find that you have two brackets holding your steering line in place. We'll use a 10mm to remove the mounting bolts from this one towards the passenger side. Now we'll reach down here. We can remove that metal bracket. Let's continue following that line towards the driver's side. You'll find one more of these brackets. Use a magnet to remove that bolt. Now we can reach down in here, take hold of that bracket. I want to try to separate the two ears so we can slide it out of place. There's the bracket. While we're down here, we'll also remove this rubber bushing. Quick inspection. Let's set both of these aside. Now we'll make our way over towards the driver's side of the engine compartment. As you look down in this area close to the firewall, you'll be able to see your steering rack, and you have your two lines going into it. The one that's closest towards the front of the vehicle is the one that's the pressure line. Use a 19 millimeter. Turn this counterclockwise to loosen it and remove the line from the power steering rack. Keep in mind, fluid might come out of this area. There we are. Got plenty of movement from that now. Now we can start removing the power steering line from this. You will find that it goes in between the rack and this bracket right here. You might have to finagle it a little bit to be able to get it out. Let's pull this right through here. There we go. There it is, friend. Okay, friend, let's get ready to install our brand new power steering pressure line. You'll find on the end that's going to the rack, I applied a little bit of tape along the end here. I don't want anything making its way into my power steering system and causing an issue. Now let's take this and bring it along the back side of the engine. We'll be sliding it in between the rack and that mount and get it up close to the power steering rack. Now that we have that slid through, we can remove the protective tape from along the end of the line. After that, we can start the line in by hand, making sure we are not cross-threading it into the power steering rack, and then snug it up. Let's get this off of here. Now when you're starting this in, you need to make sure you're coming in straight. As you can see from this angle, I'm going to cause an issue with the power steering rack. Let's just make sure we twist this, align it so it's flush, and as I said, start it in by hand. All right, so right there's bottomed out. Just make sure it's nice and tight. Let's make our way over onto the other side of that mount. We'll continue on with that rubber bushing. Install that over the two lines. Slide that right on over. Want to make sure the lines are sitting in this properly. After you have both of the lines inside of that bushing, you're going to want to continue on with your metal bracket. That'll go right around that rubber bushing and then mount to that subframe. Bring this around. Once you feel as though you have the bracket in place, continue on with your one 10 millimeter headed bolt. We'll start that in and snug it up. There's that one. Let's continue making our way towards the passenger side. Following that line, you'll find that you have the other area for your smaller bracket. We'll take that bracket and put it right on over the rubber bushing here on the line. If you need to, you can move the line around, or even that rubber bushing. Get that lined up. Let's reinstall that steering pressure sensor. As always, we're starting it by hand. Now we'll tighten that sensor, making sure we're holding the line still, 17 millimeter, and tighten the sensor with a 19 millimeter. There we are, that's nice and tight. Let's reconnect the wiring harness, press it in, listen for a click. There's a nice click. Give it a tug to make sure it's secure. Let's make our way to the bracket that will hold the line to the valve cover. Just go ahead and put it right around the line. Align the mounting bolt hole, start in that bolt, and then snug it up. That bolt in there. Now we'll install the pressure line onto the power steering pump. take a little bit of clean power steering fluid and lubricate your O-ring. Continue on to pressing the line into the power steering pump. Align your 2 mounting bolt holes and start in both of those 10mm headed mounting bolts. Let's bottom these out. Torque each of these 2 bolts to 8 foot-pounds. Let's fill up that power steering system. Making sure that you're using the manufacturer's specified fluid, we'll continue adding until we're up to the add lines. You can see right in that reservoir, I'm at the first line, I'll bring it right up to the second line. Now that we have the power steering reservoir filled up to this level, let's carefully raise and support the front of the vehicle, just enough so the wheels are off the ground. Put the key in the on position and turn your steering wheel from one side all the way over to the other. We're going to do this nice and slow. Once we've made it to that side, we'll continue by going back and forth slowly to each of the stop points. While doing so, you will notice that air will make its way out of the system. While we continue this process, we'll also be paying attention to the level of that fluid. Continue topping it off as needed. Now that we've bled the system that way, let's continue on with removing our funnel, reinstalling the power steering reservoir cap. Now we want to get inside the passenger compartment. Start up the vehicle and let it run for approximately 5 seconds and turn it right back off. Make your way back out here and double check that power steering fluid level. Typically, it will get drawn down a little bit. Top it off with that manufacturer's specified fluid, reinstall the cap, and then run the vehicle for a little while longer. While doing so, make sure you check for power steering fluid leaks. Let's check that power steering level. It's right in between the 2 markings there. Now we can go ahead and start up the vehicle, let it run, and make sure we don't have any fluid leaks. Now once you've run the vehicle, you found that you didn't have any more air in the system, and you checked for leaks, go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.